Hello friends. Today we have an incredible story that completely thrills me. If I were a woman, I would fall in love with this real man, his intelligence, his audacity. Okay, it seems I've digressed. Well then, let's begin, and prepare yourselves for an interesting plot. I'm sitting here debating my problem with myself. I'm divorced due to a cheating wife. I have been divorced going on a year. I have no kids and no immediate family in the area. I'm telling you this because I want another man's wife. I don't know if it's love, need, lust, infatuation, or just plain want of her. I do know that revenge is part of it. You see, I don't know her that well. I have been seeing her often when I go to lunch. She works in the same building as I do. I have been trying to find out as much information on her as possible. I am going to have her, but my problem is, then what? It's a horrible feeling in a sense. So far I found out she is around 30 years old. A nice petite build. Nipples that stick out from behind her braless blouses. She wears mini skirts or tight pants. She's married to a loser as far as I can tell. She has no children and is somewhat of a flirt. Her husband's a loser because he doesn't know what he has and is willing to take a chance on losing her. The worst thing about him is he broke up my marriage. He ducked my wife and now I will make him pay by doing his wife. I figure if I take her and duck her, that I will be doing her a favor. In case you haven't figured it out, I'm a nutcase. A bona fide son of a ditch. I've been this way ever since I caught my wife cheating on me. I came home from work early one day and just walked into my house. I really wasn't paying much attention to anything and just walked into my bedroom to change my clothes. There in the middle of the bed lay my wife, with another man riding the hell out of her. She saw me and screamed, and the sorry dastard thought he was doing a good job on her. He was just starting to shoot his load when I grabbed him by the shoulders and pulled him off my cheating wife. As he was starting to get up, I dragged him to the door and threw him right out into the street. I threw his wallet and car keys onto the grass, but not his clothes. He got up, staggered to his car and drove away. I never saw or heard from him again until one day fate just intervened. I then walked back into the bedroom where my sorry excuse for wife was getting dressed quickly. She was crying. "Kevin, it's not what it looked like. Please let's talk about it. We can work this out." "Not what it looked like," I said. "It looked like you were ducking that asshole in our bed. Were you ducking him or not?" "Please, Kevin, let me explain." I interrupted her. "Either you were ducking him or you weren't. Which is it? It isn't that hard of a question. Just answer it." I waited a few seconds and said, "Since you're having such a hard time with that one question, our talk is over. I'm going out to have dinner. You have 1 hour to get whatever you want and get the duck out of my life. If you're still here when I get back, I'm going to throw your sorry ass out. That's it, you have 1 hour. That's the end of this conversation." Then I walked out the door. I waited 2 hours before going back. I was hoping she would be gone. You see, I'm a man of my word, and I would have beat the duck out of her, even though she's a woman and my wife. When I got back home, she was gone and most of her personal stuff was gone also. She left me a note. I wasn't even going to read it, but then thought maybe I should. Note from Rachel. "Dearest Kevin, I made a mistake, a really big mistake. Jim doesn't mean anything to me. He was an old school friend that I ran into. We were lovers back in school. You knew I wasn't a virgin when we got married. It was Jim who was my first love. Things just happened and old memories never die. I ran into Jim at the mall. It was so good to see him again. Just as an old friend. Well, he started flirting with me, and I started remembering old times. He asked me where I lived and we came to the house. I should have known better, but I made a mistake. When we got into the house, I showed him around. When we got to the bedroom, he took me into his arms and kissed me. It just seemed like old times. Then it happened. We started necking like we used to, and then he took me. God, I wish it never happened, but it did. I'm so sorry for hurting you. Please reconsider taking me back. I promise to be a good wife and never to cheat again. I really do love you, Kevin. Love always, Rachel." The note just hurt me worse. Now the prick had a name. I love my wife, but I'm one of the nutcases out there that believes love can be lost. In my case, it was totally gone. It was replaced with revenge. Revenge isn't necessarily something you want. It's something you just have to do. I would get mine. I called off work the next day, seeing I had to change our checking and savings accounts. I called most of the credit card companies and canceled them. I kept 2 that were in my name only for any expenses I might incur. I'm a hard-nosed ducker and not afraid to admit it. That's just the way it is. Rachel's dad called and asked what the problem was between me and Rachel. I got pissed and said, "What the duck is the matter with you? Don't tell me you didn't have the balls to ask your own daughter." "Well, George, I caught your precious daughter ducking one of her friends in our bed. I'm not the forgiving kind and threw her ass out. She had a chance to take whatever she wanted, and I'm not giving her another damn dime. If she wants to go to court and bring out the dirty laundry, that's fine with me. Otherwise leave me the duck alone." Then I just hung up the phone. 2 days later, Karen, who is Rachel's younger sister, called me and asked if I would talk to her for a few minutes. I told her go ahead and talk, that I was listening. She started out saying how Rachel was so sorry. Until I cut her off. "I don't care, flying duck, how sorry Rachel is. Do you have anything else to say? If you say the name Rachel again, I'll hang up. Your sister doesn't exist in my life anymore." Karen asked if there were any more personal items that belonged to her sister left at the house. I just told her that her sister had an hour to take all she wanted with her. If she forgot something, then that was too damn bad. Karen mentioned a few items. I was starting to get pissed again. So I responded in the only way I knew. "Karen, I'll tell you what. You come over here and duck me on my bed, and I'll let you take whatever else you want for your precious sister." She screamed back, "You sorry son of a ditch, how dare you to talk to me like that? Wait until I tell my husband and you can deal with him." "Does that mean I'm not going to get a chance to duck you? I always thought you'd be a pretty good duck." "Well then send that sorry excuse for husband over here. Maybe I'll just duck him in the ass." I wasn't afraid of the wimp. He was just a yes person to his wife. I had no doubts I'd ever see him at my door. I could hear someone in the background on the phone. I knew it was Rachel. Karen must have handed her the phone. All I heard was, "Kevin, you son of a ... Then I just hung up the phone. I contacted my lawyer and had him fill out the necessary papers, giving Rachel nothing. We were renting the house, we each had our own car. Other than that, I just kept the savings accounts. Rachel never fought the divorce. I let it be known that I would talk to no one in the family except Karen, and that was only if she met my demands. Damn, I was a hard ass. Karen was a looker. She was a little better looking gal than her sister Rachel. Both were good looking women, but Karen was a few years younger, and probably ridden a lot less considering her wimp of a husband. I was getting ready to move out of the house, and the divorce was already final. I called Karen on the phone and asked if she wanted to get a few personal items of her sister's. That I was moving to an apartment and didn't want to haul her shit around. If she didn't come and get it, I would just throw it all out. She quickly said yes, she would come and get the items that evening. I told her to either come alone or bring that sorry excuse for her husband with her. Under no circumstances was Rachel to be at my door. When Karen arrived at my door that evening, she was alone. I asked about her husband, but she said he was busy. I knew the truth was that he was afraid, and she knew I was going to duck her. When she came into the house, we walked into the bedroom where I had her sister's stuff packed. She reached down for one of the boxes when I said, "Hold it. You haven't paid for it yet." She looked at me and said, "You can't be serious. I'm not going to make love to you." I laughed. "No, not love, just plain raw sex. You've been thinking about this for a long time." Note from me. I censored what happened next, but they had a really good time together. At least Kevin had. Okay, I'm continuing. I walked over and picked up a couple of her sister's boxes of stuff and headed out to her car. When I came back in, she started yelling at me. "You son of a ditch, you just use me for your pleasure. How can you be so cold, so callous? What has happened to you? Where is the fun-loving Kevin that was once here? He died. Your sister killed him. She did to me what I just did to your husband. I made him a cuckold, a wimp. You got what you wanted, just like your sister. Now take her stuff and get the duck out of my house. Don't forget to show your husband your kitten when you get home. He is probably wimp enough to stay with you. By the way, I can't stand a cheating wife. You have all your sister's stuff, so there should be no reason for you to come back." She called me a bastard, grabbed the last box of stuff and left my house. She was a damn good duck, but I knew that I just wanted her for revenge on her sister. Ducking can never take the place of love. It just can't. I'm not saying ducking a strange piece of meat is bad. I'm saying it can't be put at the same category as love. It seems to build up in you. It's all you think about. Revenge, get even, make the perpetrators pay for their act. That was my goal. I knew it wouldn't solve my problems. I knew it, but it was just something I had to do. Right or wrong, I was going to extract my revenge. Her name was Carly, the good-looking petite gal I saw every day. Sometimes you get an urge, a feeling you can't get rid of. That's what I felt when I saw this gal almost every day. She would come into the restaurant with her girlfriends. They would all laugh and seem to enjoy their lives. One of the gals she ate lunch with was Marcia. I'd known her for years. We were friends but not real close. Kind of, "Hi, Marcia, how are you today?" type friends. Marcia knew about my divorce. In a small community, almost everyone you know has heard the rumors. One day when Marcia came in the restaurant alone at lunchtime, I asked her to join me for lunch. I wanted to talk to her. She sat down, a little suspicious. I told her it was just for lunch, that I got tired of always eating alone. We talked about her family and how the kids were. She told me about her husband's promotion and about things in general. She asked me about my life and how things were since the divorce. Everyone knew Rachel cheated on me, but no one knew with whom. If anyone ever had the balls to ask, I simply told them I didn't know who it was, and it really didn't make any difference. I asked Marcia about the new girl in their office. She told me her name was Carly. She and her husband Jim had moved here about a year ago. When she said the name Jim, it just didn't sit right. Marcia looked at me and said, "Kevin, Carly is a happily married woman. You're not going to make a play on her, are you?" Everyone knew about my badass personality since the divorce. I told Marcia that I thought Carly was a fine-looking woman, and just wondered who she was. She gave me more information on Jim, and then I had to find out if he was who I thought he was. If he was, there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to duck Carly. I hated being like this, but I couldn't help it. One day at lunchtime I was in a corner booth with a friend of mine having lunch. He had never asked me much about my personal life. He knew better, so we got along just fine. As we were eating, in came Carly and her husband. It was the son of a ditch that I caught ducking my wife. Damn, I wanted to go back over and punch his lights out again, but I kept my cool. He never recognized me, seeing he only saw me for a few seconds while I beat the shit out of him. But unfortunately I recognized him and set out to duck his wife. One day when Carly was alone at the restaurant, I started talking to her. I introduced myself and mentioned that I was friends with Marcia. I wanted to put Carly at ease. She smiled and introduced herself. I asked her if she wanted to share a table. She looked a little nervous until I told her she would have to pay for her own lunch. That made her laugh as we sat down. She just talked up a storm, telling me about herself, and indicated that her husband Jim had transferred here a little over a year ago. She stated that they had kind of a rocky start here, that her husband was jumped by two men, and they had stolen everything he owned. He had to drive to the emergency room and had stitches above his left eye. She said he was a mess when he got home. She mentioned he filed a police report but didn't have a good enough description, and the police never caught the culprits. That explained why he never turned me in. After lunch I told her it was so nice to meet her, and that any time she wanted to share a table it was fine with me. Now I had a real problem. I liked Carly, I really liked her. I needed my revenge and at the same time did not want to hurt Carly. What to do? I would have to think on this. I saw her almost every day, most of the time with the other girls from her office. She always looked over at me and smiled. One day in passing I told her I was going to start lunch an hour later, so I probably wouldn't have a chance to eat lunch with her again, but lo and behold, the next day she took her lunch an hour later and was alone. She came to my table and asked to join me. Of course I said yes, and we started having lunch almost every day together. We started to become good friends, and I was starting to have strong feelings for her. One day I got up and said to her that I thought she was one of the most beautiful, nicest women I'd ever met. If she wasn't married, I would ask her out. She acted nervous and said, "But I am married, Kevin. I might not have the best marriage, but I won't ever cheat on my husband." I couldn't. It's just not right. I had to ask her about that last statement. What is wrong with your marriage? She had tears in her eyes and said she thought her husband had been cheating on her, but she wasn't sure. I took her hand and just held it for a minute. She was shaking as I did my best to calm her down. I was wondering what kind of an asshole would give up a wonderful woman like this to just duck around. What an idiot. Then I began to wonder if he was back with Rachel again. I looked at Carly and told her I had something very important to talk to her about, but I couldn't do it there, and asked if she would meet me after work. I needed her to trust me enough to go to my apartment where we could talk very privately. "Kevin, I can't go to your apartment. What would that look like? What would people think?" I just thought about Rachel for a second. Why couldn't she have been like this? "Carly, it is extremely important that I talk to you." I care for you too much not to tell you what I know. Please meet with me. I think I trust you, Kevin. I do like you but don't know you well enough to be alone in an apartment with you. Can we meet here and either talk in the car or in a restaurant? Okay, Carly, let's meet here after work. I'll even buy your dinner. She smiled at me and said, boy, it must be important if you're willing to buy dinner, as she laughed. I had to get my thoughts in order. What would I say? How would I say it? I didn't want to take the chance of alienating Carly. I wanted her for my revenge, but now I also wanted her for me. Yes, old hard-nosed son of a ditch Kevin was falling for another man's wife. Damn it, it wasn't supposed to happen this way. I was just supposed to take her in front of her husband and then laugh at him. Why did it have to be her? Damn it. We met for dinner. She told me she had talked to Marge and was told about my divorce and how my wife was found by me having sex with another man. She said that it must have been awful seeing this in my own home. She stated how sorry she felt for me. She was so afraid of finding out the same kind of information on her husband, she didn't know how she would handle it if it happened to her. Carly, there's a few things I must tell you about me. I know you're married, but I'm falling in love with you. Please, Kevin, don't say any more. I'm a married woman. Carly, it is imperative I tell you these things. I must tell you and you have to listen, please. As I said, I'm falling in love with you. My problem is I'm a hard-nosed bastard. Finding my wife and her lover together made me that way. I know you've heard people talk and say what a mean bastard I've become. I can't help it. I wish I could. I'm always walking around with a chip on my shoulder. My wife put that chip there along with her lover. My plan was revenge. I was going to find her lover's wife and duck her in front of her husband. Yes, the son of a ditch was married also. Carly interrupted me. Please, Kevin, you don't need to tell me this. It's so personal and I know it hurts for you to talk about it. I hear it in your voice. Let me continue, please, Carly. As I said, I was going to get revenge on my wife's lover and duck his wife in front of him. Now I have a big problem. The woman whom I was going to take by force if necessary is a woman I've fallen in love with. Carly put her hands over her face in shock. She knew the man was her husband and the woman I fell in love with was her. Carly had tears rolling down her face. My God, it's so hard to believe. How do you know? How can you be so sure? You were going to rape me for revenge against my husband. She was crying harder. I went to put my arms around her to comfort her, but she stopped me. Please don't touch me right now, she said. I need a moment to think. Carly, a year ago I found the man in my bedroom. I beat the shit out of him and threw him out of my house without any clothes. All I knew was that his name was Jim. I then pulled out the note from my pocket that Rachel had left me. For some strange reason I had kept it. I handed it to Carly to read. She cried as she read it. I watched you for the last 6 months coming down to the restaurant to eat lunch. Day by day I waited to see you. You were the only bright spot in my life and I didn't even know you. But I was slowly falling for you. I didn't know at the time you were married. I never approached you because I had temper problems and was still planning my revenge. Then one day I asked Marge about you. She told me you were married and I felt bad. I really wanted to get to know you better, but I didn't want to ruin your marriage. Then another day your husband met you for lunch. That was when I knew who he was. I did everything in my power not to beat the shit out of him again. If you had been any other woman, I would have taken you in front of him by now. Just for the revenge. Carly was crying with her hands folded in front of her. I continued, I was falling in love with you, and couldn't rape the woman I love. Now I'm in deep turmoil. I want to hurt your husband and not hurt you. I want to make love to you. It's been a long time since I made love. The last year has all been about revenge. I believe that your husband is back with Rachel since they were childhood sweethearts, and she is now divorced. How do you feel about me, Carly? I need to know so I know what to do. I promise regardless of your feelings for me I will not hurt you. I just couldn't do it now. I know that I'm a prick, a bastard, and a vengeful person. I'm hard-nosed as hell, but there is another side of me. One that hasn't seen the light of day for a year now. I want to show you that person. Please give me a chance to show you that side of me. I could be the kinder, gentler person for the right woman. For some reason deep inside of me I know you are that woman. There's a nice guy who wants to get out. Revenge is blocking his way. Help me, Carly, help me get my revenge on your husband. Then if you want we could build a real loving life together. My God, Kevin, so much at once. My mind is swimming with questions, and right now I don't have any answers. I'm not even sure I know my feelings for you, my husband, or even for myself. I need to think about all you've told me before I can give you any kind of answers. Please understand that I'm not playing you or putting you off. I want to help you. You seem to be hurting so much inside, but I don't know, I just don't know. After a somewhat upsetting dinner, I walked Carly to her car. I told her I was sorry if I had upset her, but I thought she should know the truth. I would do whatever I could to work with her to solve both of our problems. This might have not been the right time to tell her of my growing feelings toward her, but I would explode if I didn't vent them to her. I just wanted her to know. She did let me give her a light hug before she left. So far I hadn't solved any problems, I think I just made everything worse. Maybe telling her about her husband's past wasn't the right thing to do. I have no idea what her thoughts were. I just hope everything turned out good for her. The next day I couldn't wait to see her at lunch. I had to know her feeling and thoughts. I went to the restaurant where we usually ate. I waited for her but she never showed up. My God, what did I do? Did she have it out with her husband? Did he try to hurt her? If he did, I'd kill the son of a bitch. Maybe she went the other way and just told him about me and who I was. God, her not showing up hit me worried. I didn't know if I should try calling her house or just wait one more day. I had a hard time finishing my workday. I did my best to get my mind off Carly. When I got home my phone rang. It was Carly. She sounded distraught. Kevin, I have to see you. I know I said I shouldn't come to your place, but things have changed. I want to make that I have to see you tonight. Can I stop by please? My God, Carly, I was so worried about you. I had such a hard time today after not seeing you at lunch. Did that bastard hurt you? If he did, I'll kill the son of a ditch. Yes, come over right now. I'll be here waiting for you. As I hung up the phone, the doorbell rang. Who could that be? I wondered. I opened the door and there stood Carly grinning at me. I followed you home but needed to know if you were just blowing smoke or were really wanting to help me. When you answered the phone the way you did, I knew you were being honest with me. I'm sorry for the little test, but I had to be sure. God, I was so glad to see her. I gave her a big hug and she felt so good. I asked, why didn't you go to work today? She told me, last night I spent the whole evening trying to get my mind straight. Jim, my husband, came home late. He used his usual excuse of working late. I tried to be a little lovey-dovey with him, but he wanted no part of it. He said he was tired and was going to bed. I thought to myself, if a man refused to have sex with a woman like Carly, either he had just gotten his rocks off or was brain dead. Carly said, I waited for Jim to leave for work this morning, and then I thought I would do some detective work. I started going through the computer files looking for hidden files or letters that didn't belong. I work on the computer at my job, so I know my way around them pretty good. Because of the information you gave me, I was able to trace a few files. Here's what I found. She handed me all kinds of information. She said she would explain it to me so I wouldn't have to read all the detailed information. She looked at me and said, first, I have to tell you, I don't love Jim anymore. After all the information I found out about him, I think I despise him. I don't like being used, and that's one of my possible problems with you. I grabbed her hands and held them. Then she said, I'm not sure how I feel about you. One side of me really cares for you. But the other side of me says, watch it. He just wants to use you for his revenge, and then drop you like a hot potato. So for now I want to keep our relationship on a wait-and-see mode. If you care for me like you say, you will wait till our lives become clear, then we can proceed from there. What do you say? I smiled at her and said, that's all I ask for is a chance to prove myself. I really do care for you, and if I start moving too fast, please just tell me to slow down. Can we seal our deal with a kiss before we get started on your detective work? She smiled at me with a big silly grin and said, no, now let's get started. My husband applied for this job here. He wasn't just transferred like he told me. He asked to be transferred. That was his first lie. This was his old hometown where he grew up. I didn't think much about it at the time. I just thought that he was like a lot of people, and just wanted to move back to their old stomping grounds. I loved him, so I agreed to the move. He went to his class reunion about 16 months ago. Did your ex-wife go to it, and if she did you go also? I had a family engagement at the time. It was my mom's birthday, so I went there instead. He told me the old class reunions are usually boring anyway. Come to think of it, my wife did have a class reunion. I had an out-of-town business trip that weekend. I asked her if she wanted to go with me, but she said she would like to go see all her old friends. I never thought anything about it till now. Damn, you're a pretty good private investigator. Here's a copy of some of the emails between them just before the reunion. Not love letters, but they definitely were expecting to see each other. Now here are a couple of emails after the reunion. As you can see, or at least read, that when you caught them having sex around 4 months later, that it wasn't their first time meeting up and having sex. They had been doing it for 4 months already. I got pissed, that ducking slut. Telling me, oh, honey, it's not what you think. It just happened. I thought my revenge against her was over since we weren't married anymore, that I was only going to get revenge on Jim, but now things had changed. Carly could see the hurt and meanness in my eyes. I told Carly that I wasn't mad at her at all, but being made a cuckold by my ex-wife really pissed me off. Then I looked over at Carly and said, I really need to be kissed right now to calm me down, or I'm going to have to run my fist through the wall. I stood up and walked toward the wall. Stop, you idiot, I'll kiss you, she screamed. She got up and came up to me. She put her arms around me and kissed me really gently for a few seconds. When our lips separated, I looked into her eyes and slowly pressed my lips to hers again with a little more feeling. As we separated the second time, she said, that's enough, Tiger. I'm only human too. As we sat back down, I thanked her. She looked at me and said, my pleasure, and I really mean pleasure. Now let's get back to work. I can't be here all night. We both laughed as we thought the same thing. Here are copies of my husband's cell phone records for the past year or so. As you can see, this number is called almost daily. I called the phone company and it belongs to a Rachel Miller. That's my wife's maiden name. I didn't even know she took it back. Also, I never knew she had a cell phone. When was it purchased? According to my husband's phone records to that number, it must have been about a month before he was beaten up by a couple of thugs named Kevin. She was smiling. That means she had the phone before you caught them. That could explain why they got away with it for so long, and also why she didn't fight for more money during the divorce. Some of this might have come out and wouldn't have helped her case. What about you, Carly? Where do you stand in all this? For me right now, it's mostly pride, but you're still married to the bastard. What do you want us to do? She looked at me knowing I said the word us instead of you. I want to take him for everything we have. I want to make him sorry he ever did this to me. I want to embarrass him in public. How do I do all this without becoming a slut or a liar? I want to keep my pride and hopefully you. Carly, do you think you can live in the same house for a couple of weeks without giving anything away? No problem, I just don't want to have sex with him. Other than that, I don't have any problem making a dinner or two. If he continues to see his girlfriend regularly, I should be alright. Well, Carly, to begin with, you need to go shopping. We can go during lunch if you like. Make sure you use joint credit cards in both your names. We don't want you to get in trouble using cards in his name only. Buy yourself everything you always wanted. Run up as much debt as you can. Take some cash advances and put the money in a savings account or buy bonds or stock. Kevin, aren't you a stockbroker? Why aren't you doing the investing for me? I didn't want you to have any doubts about me. I really care for you and want you to trust me. I can invest the money for you if you like. I just want you to know that I don't want any of it. I'm here to help you. If you decide to make love to me at some point, that will be the revenge for me. We figured that the credit cards were going to be our starting point. As she got up to leave, I asked her if I'd get any more kisses tonight. She put her arms around me and opened her mouth slightly and kissed me. I was feeling like a teenager and pulled her body into my growing erection. She pressed her pelvic area against me. Then she pulled away saying, damn, you good. See you at lunch tomorrow. She smiled and got into her car. The next day, instead of eating lunch, we went to a couple of banks. Using her joint credit cards, she took thousands of dollars as cash advances. That would give her a month to make all her transfers before the credit card bills came due. She was smart. She didn't max out any cards, just in case he was to use any of them. She did find out he was charging a motel room twice a week on one of the cards. We did the bank thing for 3 days using 7 different charge cards. I took the checks and invested all the money for her. I used tax-free government bonds and other accounts that would be hard to get the money out of. Carly had me put the accounts in my name, so her husband wouldn't be able to get any of the money. I did make her a co-signer of the accounts, so I couldn't take any money without her signature. The co-signer was my idea. I wanted her to feel safe about the investments and about me. I started to check out the latest on my ex. I couldn't find much. I gave Carly whatever information I could about her, and she ran with it. She said that Rachel was now working for the same company as her husband. Rachel was one of the company's secretaries. Carly used her connections and found out where they spent their time when not at work. They were getting sloppy. Since they have been cheating for so long, they didn't think anyone noticed. Carly had her girlfriend start taking pictures and notes on whatever was happening. I found out everyone loved Carly. All the other secretaries respected her. Whenever they had a computer problem, they called her. I found out she was literally a computer geek without the geek look. She went from office to office helping all the secretaries with their computer problems. They never felt belittled or were made fun of because Carly would always take the time to explain the procedures to them. They all felt protective of her. I didn't know about my revenge. How was I going to do it? I couldn't rate Carly, not now that she was the only good thing in my life. My ex-wife was out of my life, but I wouldn't mind getting a little revenge on her, since this was a long-running affair before our divorce. But how and what could I do? Without Carly's help, I wasn't sure I could pull it off. Carly had told me she couldn't just have sex with me right now. If she did, she wouldn't be any better than my cheating wife for her husband. She did care for me but was still a married woman. I needed a plan. What to do. And that's the end of the first part. The second part will be tomorrow, I promise you. No long waits, I never do that, you know it. Treat this like a TV series with an interesting twist. Love you all.